Here's the exact roadmap of how my clients removed their income ceiling and how they were able to normalize that hard number into their new identity so that that number that feels hard for them now feels normal. Now, whilst you go through most of this training, I want you to remember that 95% of the actions that we take comes from our unconscious mind. So if you remember that, it's really going to help you throughout this whole training. I'm going to show you the exact roadmap and tactics that they used to 2 to 5x their income. So stick around and you'll see it all. Now, what I want to first talk about is William Brown. We spoke about 3.5 weeks ago, or actually a bit longer than that now, maybe like 5 weeks ago. He was making about 400 to 600K a month. And he'd been there for about 1.5 years and he'd been stuck there. Like he really wanted to get to $1 million a month, but for 1.5 years consistently bouncing between 400 to 600K a month. And he felt like $1 million a month was really, really hard. And here's a conversation we were just having a couple days ago about how he just hit $1 million a month. He hit his first ever $1 million month. So 3.5 weeks after we spoke, he ended up hitting 1.1 million cash collected in his business. Now, it's pretty cool. I think he's actually on the run to get 1.2 million this month, which will be his biggest ever cash collected month. Just so you know, William Brown, he's not a client of mine, but we were having a conversation. I was over at his villa. We were talking about some mindset stuff together. And it was really interesting because for literally 1.5 years, nothing had changed. And he felt like $1 million a month was really, really difficult. And he asked me all these different questions about why it is that when you're attached to something, it's often harder to get. Because he'd had these big like leaps in income before, but for some reason, no matter what he was trying, like nothing was happening for him. He works really hard, has a big team, and the way that he got to $1 million a month is by following some principles. So in this video, I'm going to show exactly what he did, and then also exactly, more importantly, what my client did, Alec, and break past a lot of those income ceilings. So Alec, one of my clients, he's based over in Miami. When we first started to talk about all this and work on some of his mindset, he was making about 80K a month at the time. Now, fast forward about a few months later, he's making about 250K cash collected. I'm gonna walk through exactly what he did, literally like step by step. I'm not leaving anything out, by the way, on how he actually was able to scale to this point. There was 3 specific things that he did. And you got to bear in mind, like I said earlier at the start of this, 95% of the actions that we take is run by our subconscious/unconscious mind. So Alec, he had a great work ethic, like worked super, super hard, but he just wasn't doing enough of the big things anymore. So he was still like putting in lots of time, still doing a few things, right? And some big things, but he wasn't doing enough for the big things. And what I mean by big things is the needle movers, the ones that actually get you to those $1 million months, the things that actually start to make a big difference in your business and in your life. So he had a few different behavioral loops that he kept going on. A big one for him was spending too much time on like low compensation tasks. So an example was just like spending way too much time on like AI and automation and stuff like that, because that's what he loves doing. But it got to a point where he was spending way too much time on it, and it wasn't actually the thing that was bringing him in new clients and making more money. So even if something seems good from the outside, if we're just doing it because we enjoy it, but it's not actually getting us any closer to our goal, then that's a behavioral loop that he obviously needed to fix. So a few examples of things that he wasn't doing enough of. He was still doing these things, but he wasn't making enough new ads. He wasn't creating enough new marketing material. He also needed to hire new team members. He was up to his 4th new team member that he needed to hire, but he just didn't end up doing it because he kind of really took on this doer archetype, is what I call it, which is the person that feels like everything needs to be perfect, and the only way it can be perfect is if you do it all yourself, because sometimes you can't trust someone. And it's so interesting because someone like Alec, he'd already had like, you know, lots of team members before, and he's got lots of team members, but a part of him just doesn't feel like he can still fully outsource and fully trust in his team. When most mindset coaches would see some of the behavioral loops and kind of challenges that Alec had been going through, they would treat it like a time management problem. They would think that they just need to get like a new structure to manage his time better. But as soon as he went through this identity audit, it was literally like a complete switch in his head. he realized that this was actually his own subconscious avoidance. So feelings like having a tight chest, feeling overwhelmed, he was future pacing too much. And what that means is when you kind of look into the future, but you feel like if you do all this work, it's not going to pay off in the way that you want it to. So future pacing can be good in some ways if it's positive, but often what we do when we future pace is we think, oh, I'm just going to be wasting time by doing certain things. And that was what he was doing with his own ads and marketing and stuff like that too much. And just to clarify, Alec already knew what he needed to do. Same with all of my clients. Every single client I work with is very high caliber. So they know what they need to be doing. They know what the big thing is that they need to do. But for some reason, they're just not doing that big thing enough. Like for William, for example, William Brown, the guy that I just explained before, he knew that he needed to make the team better. He needed to outsource to a few different people. He needed to continue building the sales team more, but for some reason he just wasn't doing that thing. And a big reason why was because he was future pacing a lot. He was future pacing that if he's to get a bigger team, he's going to have to be running a team that he doesn't want to have to manage. And he's just not going to be like enjoying life as much as he is at the moment. And when you start to do that, that creates this subconscious avoidance. Now he wants the goal so bad, but if you don't believe that once you actually get there, it's going to be enjoyable, then it's really hard to actually scale properly. So what we do with the identity audit is get you so clear on when your mind is actually lying to you, because your mind lies to you all the time. It says things and it makes up excuses of why we're not where we want to be. And this just gets you so crystal clear on like what your own programming is, so that the next time you have a feeling of, oh, I shouldn't, do this thing because of X, Y, Z. And instead you actually start to realize, okay, that's my income ceiling. That's been set by my past identity. I'm now creating a new one. I'm not going to listen to that old programming anymore. It gets you crystal clear on what your programming actually is. So what this actually did for Alec is it made him realize straight away that he was a lot of the time operating from his old programming. The programming that kept him at, say, like the 80K a month version of him, that was running the show a lot of the time. And when you realize this, you can then kind of like detach from that old identity because you could now see it very clearly. The second thing that Alec did that helped him to scale to 250K a month, now he's on his way to about 500K a month soon. But the thing that he did was something called neural identity anchoring. So what this is a personal operating roadmap. So it's not like a business roadmap or anything like that. This is an internal reference because, as you know, when we start to shift internally, that's when we shift externally. That's when we start to bring in the results that we want. So what this step does is it creates very clear reference points for his new identity. So anytime he's off the beaten path, he knows, okay, that's not actually my identity. This is what I need to be following. This is how I need to be showing up. This is the person and this is the way that I operate. So what this did was create really clear identity markers so that anytime he's not being that new identity, he can clearly see it. Like there's no confusion around that, so that he knows that as he's starting to scale into this new version of himself and build this new identity, this is him, this is not him. And it's something that when you have this, you can look through life through almost a completely different lens, because when you can truly master the way you feel internally and you can articulate kind of the way that you feel internally, not to others, but be able to articulate it to yourself and realize, okay, I'm acting like this. This isn't the 1 million a month identity version of me. That's how I should be acting. That's exactly what this number 2 does. Now, the third thing that we did with Alec was subconscious repatterning hypnosis. What this does is it removes the feeling that 1 mil a month feels hard. The reason that we have these feelings and these thoughts that a certain number is difficult is because of our subconscious beliefs. Things that we picked up over time. Maybe we picked it up from our parents, our friends, our environment, or maybe we just created that feeling for ourselves, right? It gets rid of the thoughts, the subconscious beliefs, the feelings. A lot of the clients that I work with, they work really, really hard. Literally all of them do. They all make a lot of money as well, but they all have a certain number in their head that feels difficult. And when we do this, it creates a new state for you. The way I explain your state is it's both your thoughts and then your feelings. When you have 1, the thought that 1 million a month is hard, and then 2, You have this feeling of every time you're about to scale, you have to do things that you don't want to do and it feels overwhelming. Maybe you get a tight chest, like whatever the feelings are. Whereas with this, we completely reprogram your subconscious mind. So any goal that you have, we actually start to normalize that in your head, because when we normalize something, that's when we have it. Everything that feels normal to you now, like say 100K a month, which you've already hit, that probably feels normal for you, right? Why does it feel normal? Or why does 400K a month feel normal? Like that was the exact same situation for William. It's because you've normalized it. You've made it enough times, but more importantly, your subconscious mind has actually created that as a normal amount in your head. You've created that identity, that 400, 600K a month entrepreneur identity. That is now you. So in order to get that new goal, all we need to do is normalize the next thing that you want to hit. And then as we start to do that, it's very easy to have that as our consistent, monthly revenue or monthly income. And another thing that happens when you start to do this is your frequency changes. Now, the simplest way that I like to explain frequency is it's just basically the way that you operate and like the person you are, the things that you kind of bring into your life and I guess attract into your life. When you start to act as the person with both the feeling, the right feeling, the positive feeling, and then the thoughts, when you start to do both of those things, you start to act and be on that frequency. You are now that person. You are being that person rather than just wanting that goal. Because there's so many times, like so many people have wanted a goal, right? Like William, for example, I know I brought him up a lot of times, but he wanted to make $1 million a month so bad and he tried to do it for so long, but he wasn't being the person. He was being the 400 to 600K a month entrepreneur, but he wasn't being the 1 million a month entrepreneur. And then once he started to actually do the things necessary, created the right behavioral loops and acted in the correct ways that the 1 mil a month version of him operates, he got it almost just like that. That's when you see these quantum leaps. Like for him, 3.5 weeks, it's a quantum leap where like you've tried for so long, 1.5 years he was trying for. And then just like that, it happens because he's now being that person. So the way that we started to make Alec start to be the person is through those 3 things. 1, the identity audit. 2, neural identity anchoring. And 3, subconscious repatterning hypnosis. Once this happens, the unconscious thoughts that $1 million a month is hard or whatever other goal you have is hard, we get rid of that with these 3 steps. The second part of it, which is being the actual person, showing up consistently, having the right behaviors, creating the right identity of someone that is actually already at this goal, that's what can start to change once you start to operate on this level. So now that Alec did 250K cash collected last month, he's now focused on making 500K a month. And these are the exact principles that he's going to be taking into these next, couple weeks, few months, years to get much, much further. But I have a feeling it's not going to be years. I have a feeling that it's going to be very soon. And also, I've been mentored by some of the best hypnotists in the world. I'm constantly getting better as well, constantly learning, constantly investing in my hypnosis capabilities. And I've worked with some amazing entrepreneurs as well. Here's a couple examples of me hypnotizing someone in person. Most of my clients are online because it works really well online as well. One of my clients, he's one of the best jewel dealers in the world, I suppose you could say. Like he's worked with some really big names like Luke Belmar, Lil Pump, some really big rappers. He actually messaged me 2 days later after this one hypnosis session that he did with me, saying that he closed the biggest deal that he ever has. It was $90K US. So they're the 3 steps that my client used to remove his income ceiling completely. Now, if you're also wanting to become a one-on-one client, just know that I don't work with everyone. You need to have a successful business. It also needs to be a good connection between the two of us. If you do try and become a one-on-one client, I also can't promise that you'll be accepted. Now, there is like a process in order for you to get looked at as becoming one of my clients. You can apply down below. If I feel like you're a good fit, my team feels like you're a good fit, then we can arrange a conversation. But there is a bit of a process to actually become a client of mine. Couple important things. You need to have a successful business already. You need to be someone that's obviously willing to invest in yourself. If I feel like there is a fit and there's a connection there and I feel like I can truly help, then I look forward to seeing you. I look forward to smash your new goals, operate on the next level and become the new version of yourself. So if that sounds like you, then apply down below. You can fill out a form and there might be an opportunity there if you're the right fit to book in a call with me.